What's up, everyone? It's Mike, the sports guy here, and welcome to a Sunday night. That means baseball power rankings are here tonight, and we are here for all the action. Well, I'm here for all the action anyway. um, gonna go through the power rankings for this week. A lot of possibly don't want to say controversial. It's just subjective from my point of view. But a lot of very interesting rankings this week coming in from baseball, and um, let's just get into it on this Sunday night, the 23rd of May. Move myself into the corner, and we are off and running. So, to start the power rankings for this week, we have, drum roll, the Arizona Diamondbacks. All right, so Arizona's coming off a week where they lost all 7 games. All right. They're on an 8-game losing streak. They've won only 1 game in their last 10. When you get swept by the Dodgers and then you get swept by Colorado, that's when you're in deep doo-doo. And they're 18-30. They have a 9-9 home record, 9-21 on the road. They're 2-13 against teams over 500, 12.5 games out of their divisional race, and things falling apart in Arizona land very quickly. I mean, I know they've had some injuries to deal with, but I mean, this team not too long ago was expected to compete. They got Madison Bumgarner for that reason, and it's just completely fallen apart for them. So, let's see what they do. I think they're going to probably sell at the deadline, most likely. We'll see what they can do. It's going to be a mess in Arizona. Team that's trying to get back into it. The only saving grace is as long as they bring back those purple uniforms. I don't think anybody will be complaining. But anyway, that's a whole nother video in entirety. Moving on, number 29, the Baltimore Orioles. So Baltimore finishing out the week also winless this week at 0-6. They've lost 6 straight. They're won 1 out of their last 10 games. They're now at 17-29. Technically, they have a worse record than Arizona, but Baltimore has played better than Arizona as a whole. They just ran into a Tampa Bay team that's extremely hot now, and they just got swept by Washington. And it was a close series between those two teams, so it wasn't like they were getting blown out like Arizona was getting to Colorado early on. So, I mean, Baltimore, they're starting pitching. They got John Means, and that's pretty much it. They don't have really anybody else. So I kind of feel for Baltimore right now. It's another tough year down in Maryland, and I mean, can't ask for much more than to try and see the young guys and Trey Mancini. What a season he's had thus far after last year. There are some bright spots in Baltimore, and I think there's improvements coming. Still got to get through the rest of the season, though. So they're right now 29th in the power rankings for this week. Moving on to number 28, it's Pittsburgh. The Pirates have been struggling as well. Pittsburgh just got dismantled by the Cardinals in a 2-game series, and then they lost 3 out of 4 against Atlanta. They got blown out in the second game, 20-1. They've lost 3 in a row. They're 1-5 this week, 3-7 their last 10. Pittsburgh now at 18-28 with a 3.91 winning percentage, 10-17 at home, 11-17 on the road, or rather 8-11 at home, 10-17 on the road, and they're 11-17 against teams over 500 this year. I mean, Pittsburgh's had some bright spots. I know Brian Hayes, losing him was bad. I mean, that's a tough stretch to begin the year. But they've had some bright spots in pitching that you wouldn't normally expect. I mean, Pittsburgh's pitching actually has been okay. I mean, it's been respectable. I mean, some of the guys, Anderson has been a pretty bright spot for the Buccos, and another lost year for them, unfortunately. But you know what? There's bright spots on this team, too. So there can only be improvements from here on out, right? Right? At least you hope so. All right, moving on. The most unexpected team to be at the bottom of the standings, the Minnesota Twins. And I was on my own personal Twitter account. I was going through things, and what the heck happened to the Twins? It's essentially what I said. And what the heck happened to the Twins? I mean, the Twins had a pretty decent week. They went 4-4. They're not entirely out of this. Mind you, they're not entirely out of this. They're only 9.5 games back. Only, I say. But yeah, I mean, they lost 2 out of 3 against the White Sox, and they split a doubleheader against the Angels in between the series between them, and then winning 2 out of 3 against Cleveland, which isn't too bad. But they're the worst. They have the worst record in baseball at 17-29 right now, and yeah, it's in Twinland right now. I can only imagine what pain you're feeling. They've had some injuries. Rotational injuries have been mostly their downfall thus far, and not having depth of that position's really shown this year, and not getting much bullpen help either doesn't really help you either. So I don't know what's going to happen to Minnesota. We still got a long way to go. It's only May, but I mean, they could go on a stretch. They got way too much talent on that team, but maybe selling off as much as they can. We'll see what happens with the Twinkies in the Twin Cities this for the rest of the year. It's very surprising how bad they've been. I'm very shocked by it. All right, moving on from them, you got the Colorado Rockies, and this was a team that was expected to be kind of down in the standings this year. And you know what? I mean, they've played decent baseball. I mean, they just got swept. They got swept by the Padres to begin the week, had a day off, and then they swept the Arizona Diamondbacks. So I mean, they're somewhat trending in the right direction. You're beating teams that are supposed to be below you, I guess, at this point. But I don't see Colorado going anywhere. They're 18-29. They're 2-17 on the road. They get to play a New York Mets team that's just about to get healthy now too. So let's see how the Rockies can respond. They got a tough test coming for them to start the week next week. So I mean, for what it's worth, I think the Rocks are gonna, like I said, they might sell Trevor Story at the deadline. We'll see what happens with the Rocks. I mean, they've had some bright spots at home. They've been pretty good. Their pitching's been okay. I mean, John Gray's been having a bounce back year compared to previous years. So let's see what the Rocks can do. They could play a spoiler role for sure in that West division when you get closer to the playoffs for the 3 teams that are on top of that division right now. All right, moving to 25. And a team that has been kind of meandering around 500 for a bit. Now they've lost 6 in a row. Now they're 5 games under 500. That's the Seattle Mariners at 21-26. They lost 6 straight. They lost all 6 games this week. They've only won 3 out of their last 10. You get swept and no hit by the Detroit Tigers in at least one of those games. And then you just got completely dismantled by the San Diego Padres. Their pitching's pretty decent. Their hitting is terrible. And the least of it, Seattle's hitting has been horrendous. They have the worst batting average in the whole entire league, and it's not even close. Getting Cullen up there recently, not a bad pickup, I guess, in the grand scheme of it. But Seattle, man, they need a new hitting coach or new philosophy or something, because what's going on there ain't working. And they dropped down big time. I mean, when I kind of sketched this out last week, they're at 25 now, and they were at 17 for me last week. So Seattle's got some work to do, and there's some like dark horse expectations coming from some people with the Mariners this year. I just don't see it. I mean, this team's kind of lost its way a bit here in the month of May, but it's still only May. We still got a long season to go. All right, moving on. 24, the Cincinnati Reds, and the Reds, tough week for them. They're now 20-25, and Reds are now 6 games back in their division, 7 back in the National League wildcard race. They got swept by the Giants, and they got swept badly by the Giants. The last game was a 19-4 drubbing on Thursday, and then they lost 2 out of 3 against Milwaukee. They have lost 2 in a row, have lost 6 out of their last 7 for the week, and they've lost 7 out of their last 10. Cincinnati's pitching has been mediocre at best. They got some really good hitting, though. Jesse Winker has been on fuego this past past 5 days. It's helped my fantasy team a little bit, but still didn't get me the win. He almost did, but that's besides the point. That's pretty much the only bright spot the Reds have is Jesse Winker, and that's it. And that's a problem. I mean, that's the only guy carrying your team, and he can't carry it by himself. So For Cincinnati, they really got to get it going. They really need to figure out what to do here. They could have made some bigger pushes for free agents during the past offseason. They did not. And I think it's going to bite them in the butt in the long run. They could have definitely used them. And you're not seeing it now, even in that Central Division that's somewhat okay. I mean, you got teams that are starting to kind of break away from the rest of the pack, and the Reds are not one of them. They're definitely down at the bottom. So they're 24th this week, and they might drop. Maybe depends on how the rest of those teams do on that bottom row of the power rankings. 23, a surprisingly good week for the Detroit Tigers, and they are, yes, they're 18 and 28. There's a couple teams below them that have better records, but Detroit as a whole, they had a really bad stretch towards the end of April, beginning of May, but they've kind of pieced it together. Their pitching's gone a lot better the last couple of days. They did have a no-hitter against Seattle on Tuesday, but they won four out of 6 this week, even though they lost the last 2 to Kansas City, the last 2 games on Saturday and Sunday. But they're trending a little bit in the right direction. This team really had no direction for it really competing this year. To see them a little bit higher than a couple of teams that you'd be surprised to see, like Minnesota, maybe a little bit of Cincinnati. I'm impressed to see Detroit starting to trend a little bit better and playing better baseball as a whole. And obviously, Akil Baddoo is, a god in his own right. When he's actually streaking on a hot streak, that's how that goes. All right, moving on. Anaheim, or excuse me, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, 22. Another lost year probably for the Angels. They're 7 games under 500. They're at 20 and 27. That 13 and 19 record against teams over 500 is not going to win you any favors. You lost 2 out of 3 against Cleveland. You split a doubleheader against the Minnesota Twins. And then now you just lost 2 out of 3 against Oakland, even though they just won the game today, 6-5. You're not winning games that you're supposed to be winning, and of course you're missing Mike Trout in your lineup, and your pitching staff's in shambles. I mean, except for Shohei Ohtani. I mean, he's been, oh man, pitching and hitting. It's something else to see that guy do what he's doing, and it's a special thing to see. But the only point I'm trying to get at is that he's the only bright spot on this team right now, and that's like it's the same concept for the Reds right now. It's not something that you want to see. And it sucks to see Mike Trout out. Dude just can't catch a break. Are they ever going to make the playoffs with him? They get competent management in that place. I mean, especially making moves and trying to get people to play in Los Angeles. I mean, or it's not the Dodgers, but it's the Angels. You're still in LA. I guess that's not enough for them. So they're 22 this week. They had a tough week, and I don't expect to see it get much better for LA. Unless it does, prove me wrong, but I mean, we're not there. I don't think we're getting there. All right, the next team up, number 21, Philadelphia. And Philly, I think it's just by virtue of who they played this week and how they performed. The Phillies, they're only 1 game under 500 in the grand scheme of things. 15 and 10 at home. They've been rough on the road. 8 and 14 is not a great record to see on the road. They're 14 and 15 against teams over 500, though, so that's not a bad record to see as well. They're only game and a half out of the East. That's a whole other thing on its own. The National League East has been a little underwhelming this year. Everybody's kind of just beating each other up. I think that's really what it comes down to. But at the same time, Philly's defense has been Aaron Nola has been Zach Wheeler has been really good, and they've gotten some really good production. It's consistency that's the issue for Philly, and the bullpen's kind of started to let up a little bit. Philly only won 2 out of their 6 games this week. They lost 2 out of 3 against the Miami Marlins, and then they lost 2 out of 3 against the Boston Red Sox. They only won 3 out of their last 10 games. The Phillies are kind of fading a little bit, but they're not out of it. I mean, like I said, the National League East, everybody's beating each other up, and nobody's really running away with that division. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So the next team is also National League East participant, and that's the Washington Nationals at number 20. And Washington's been playing a little bit better as of late. They're 20 and 23. I put them ahead of Philadelphia just because of I know they lost 3 out of 4 against Chicago, but they did sweep the Baltimore Orioles, games that they should be winning. They did. So, and they're on a 3-game winning streak. They have won 6 out of 10, and that's not a bad place to be for Washington. Um, I mean, they're only 2.5 games out of the East. Yeah, they got a worse record than Philadelphia, but they're playing better than Philadelphia right now. They've been showing some heart in their game, so don't count Washington out. They can make a run. They're always dangerous. They're never out of it. So I've learned that from experience. That's for sure, being a Met fan. But yeah, that's all right. So that's 20. Head of them in the power rankings this week. The Texas Rangers. Now, hear me out. Yes, they're 5 games under 500. They're 22 and 27. However, when you won the first game against the Yankees, you got no hit against Corey Kluber and the Yankees on Wednesday night, so you lost 3 out of 4 in that series. But then you go against the Houston Astros, and you sweep them. And yeah, you won 2 out of 3 with the extra innings, but I mean, you still swept one of the better teams in the American League. I got to tip my cap to the Rangers. I mean, a lot of people had them down and out. A lot of people had them being the worst team in baseball, perhaps, this year with Colorado and Pittsburgh and Detroit. But, I mean, Texas has been holding their own. They found some gems in the pitching staff and the bullpen that have guys revitalizing their career. And the offense has been playing a lot better, too, lately. And it's great to see Texas kind of being somewhat relevant. I mean, like I said, a lot of people counted them out. Not this year. So, I mean, are they going to make the playoffs? No. But are they going to probably make some spoilers out of this American League West and the rest of the playoff picture in the American League? Absolutely. They've been playing solid baseball, and that's something that I can respect. And when you sweep the Astros like that, that's always great to see, too. All right, number 18 is the Atlanta Braves. Now, all right, Atlanta's been playing better, and they're starting to get hot. However, they just played Pittsburgh, and they lost 2 out of 3 against the AAA Syracuse Mets just this past week. So, I mean, Atlanta is 1 game under 500. They are the second place team in the National League East. They're a game and a half back. And, I mean, for the most part, I mean, good. Ronald Acuna Jr. looks like he's starting to really get hot. But they got to prove it to me. I mean, it's nothing against me being a Met fan and not liking Atlanta at all, but at the same time, Atlanta needs to prove it, and Atlanta needs to beat teams that they can beat. Beating up Pittsburgh is a team that you're supposed to beat. That's something that you're supposed to do. But when you go against the Mets have like nobody healthy right now, and you lost 2 out of 3, and you barely won the third game. That does not prove it to me. I mean, Atlanta's got some issues in their bullpen and their pitching staff, and I don't know if that can hold them up in the National League East when the Mets get healthy. I really don't see it, and it's nothing against Atlanta and their fans. I just don't see them making that push, and it's tough to see because you lost your star pitcher. You just lost your pitcher that just decided to not have keep his temper down, and he punched the wall and he broke his hand. Now he's out for a bit, so Atlanta's getting thin in the pitching core, and that's not a good place to be when you're trying to chase for a division title. They could prove me wrong, but in the grand scheme of things, they beat Pittsburgh. They swept Pittsburgh. They killed Pittsburgh. They won 20-1 in the first game, 6-1 on Saturday, 7-1 on Sunday. They lost the first game in extra innings, though. So, I mean, you win 3 out of 4 against Pittsburgh. That's what you're supposed to do. But I don't see Atlanta ahead of all the other teams that are ahead of them right now. One of those teams right next to them is Toronto. And it's funny because Toronto was really getting hot at the beginning of the week. At least we thought. And, they beat Boston. They beat Boston on Tuesday night, 8-0. I was like, oh, this is impressive. Maybe Toronto's starting to get it together. And then they lost the next 2 against Boston. That Thursday game was pretty close, so it was pretty back and forth. And then they hit Tampa Bay at the wrong time. So Toronto, it was a tough week. They lost 5 out of 6 this week. They've lost 5 in a row. Toronto is now 23-22. They're 1 game over 500. 4.5 out of the American League East and also the wild card spot because Boston and Tampa Bay are tied for first in the American League East, so they're tied for the wild card spots. That's how that works. So because you can't give it to one team. You can't give it to just the one team. Oh, you get the division, you get the wild card. That's not how that works. So Toronto, they were playing good baseball. It's not like they're not in these games. They're definitely in them. I just think the teams that are ahead of them right now are better than them. Um, their pitching is, they have their moments too. They kind of piece it together most games. The offense needs to be more consistent. I think that's where it comes down to. They need to smash the ball a little bit more. I think just by the eye test. But Toronto 17, so um, they round out the 17 spot. Ahead of them is Miami with the Florida insignia because I love that logo. Miami is at 22 and 24. All right, they're 2 games under 500. No big deal. They're 2 games out of the National League East. They're behind Atlanta in the standings, but I put Miami ahead of them because Miami had a better week. Miami beat Philadelphia 2 out of 3, and then they beat the Mets, who they really should have beat. They lost 1 game in extra innings. They beat them 2 out of 3, so they went 4-2 this week, and they're trending in the right direction. So nothing against Atlanta. I just think Miami had a better week than Atlanta did, so they're at the 16th spot. So the first half of the power rankings is done. So the second half, we start with the Milwaukee Brewers, and they're 15th. Milwaukee's a 500 team, and that's why they're at that spot. Milwaukee has been treading water at times. The thing that confuses me is that Milwaukee is 15-7 against teams over 500. All right, so something's got to give for Milwaukee. I think they underestimate the teams that they play at times, and they really need to get it together. Granted, some of these teams, like for instance Kansas City, that they've played already, are now under 500, so they don't count towards the record. But at the same time, Milwaukee could use a little bit of help in that regard. They need to beat up the teams that they need to beat up, and I think that's why they're in this position right now. They lost both games against Kansas City in that 2-game set, but they did beat Cincinnati 2 out of 3. So they went 2-3 this week. Let's see if Milwaukee can start piecing it together. They got way too much talent on this team to be a 500 team, and Christian Yelich just pretty much is getting healthy. Watch out for the Brewers. They could start to make a run if they can really piece it together and get it all together all at the same time, which they're very possible of doing. So the team that's right above them is Kansas City. 22 and 23 is their record. They're 4 games out of the American League Central because Chicago got swept this past weekend, and I think the Royals, in the grand scheme of things, they were expected to be a bottom dweller in this division, and the fact that they're playing 500 ball, they started out the season really hot, got cold, now they're starting to kind of heat up again. They went 4-1 this week. I mean, they beat Milwaukee both games, and then they just beat the Tigers 2 out of 3. I don't think you can complain about that, and I think Kansas City, in the grand scheme of things, playing really good baseball. I mean, bullpen's been outstanding. I think that's the very underrated piece about the Royals, is that once you get to that bullpen, watch out. The Cleveland Indians coming in at number 13 in their American League Central team. They're 24 and 20. They're 4 games over 500. Teams against over 500, they're 7 and 7. They're a game and a half out of the Central, so they're right there. But for Cleveland, you're beating teams that you're really supposed to. But the problem is that you beat the Angels 2 out of 3, but then you lost to the Twins 2 out of 3, and that's something that's concerning. I think as if you're a Cleveland fan, is that you're not beating up the teams you're supposed to beat up. And in the grand scheme of things, winning series against teams that you should be winning series against. The Indians, it's been middling, and it's like you get your top end of the rotation, and that's it. I mean, nothing really screams out at me that the Indians are going to make a run. I mean, they'll probably stay around for a bit, but I don't see them challenging the White Sox, even though they're only a game and a half back of the Sox. They just the Sox had a tough series against the Yankees, and I mean, the Yankees are hot. They just caught them at the wrong time. I think the White Sox will bounce back. The Mets are 12th, and a lot of people probably would say, oh, well, all these other teams should be ahead of the Mets. Listen, the Mets are literally playing like the scrap heap right now with who they got. Or they're playing guys that are from the scrap heap. Brandon Drury, Cameron Maben, they have guys from AAA like Khalil Lee, and Janeshi Fargas, and it's just like, listen, the fact the Mets are winning ball games right now, they just came off a road trip. Um, they went 3-6 on the road trip, and it's the Mets aren't like really blowing it out of the water right now, but they're going to start getting guys healthy. DeGrom should be back next week. Syndergaard might be back by June, and that could really bolster the rotation. Taijuan Walker will be back. The Mets will get healthy, and once they start getting healthy, watch out. This team could really get on a run. They're missing 7 out of 9 guys in their starting lineup right now from opening day. That should tell you enough. J.D. Davis should be coming back. A lot of these guys should be coming back soon, and I think the Mets can really start making a run, getting towards the end of the month, and also starting in June. June's always been a kryptonite month for the Mets. If the Mets can keep it going with what they have now, they're playing Colorado for 4 games. That should be a series that you should be winning with the lineup you have, even if it's like a mostly AAA lineup. And Francisco Lindor. I mean, Lindor's really need to pick it up. I mean, it's nothing against Lindor. He's had his moments, and he's played well in this past series. But, man, if Lindor can just start going off, I think this team can really, really pick it up. The one thing that concerns me, and just looking at it from a perspective, the Mets are 2-10 against teams over 500 this year. That's something they need to improve, but at the grand scheme of things, I mean, they're kind of getting by right now, so just go with it. Chicago Cubs with the win tonight. They moved to 11th. I think the Cubs are playing much better baseball. They're 24-22. They got an extra inning win against the Cardinals tonight. That meant they won 2 out of 3 against the Cards. They're 5-2 this week, and they're 7 out of their last 10 with wins. And listen, you beat the Washington Nationals 3 out of 4. That's a series you need to win, but beating the Cardinals 2 out of 3 was big. I think the Cubs are really starting to put it together quietly. You're 2.5 games back. You're only 2 games over 500. But I think the Cubs are getting there. I mean, they got the talent. I mean, they got the hitting. That's what it really comes down to for the Cubbies. They got the hitting, and I think that really goes a long way. And Craig Kimbrell, obviously, every time. Ooh, can't go against that guy, right? So moving on, the Houston Astros numero 10. And I think the Astros, I had them higher earlier in the week, and then they just got swept by the Texas Rangers, and that deserves a drop down. And I think they're a really good baseball team. They're 26-21. Don't get me wrong, but that's a series you need to win. And then you just got swept. And they also went they went 2-4 this week. They've lost 3 in a row. I mean, they've won 6 out of their last 10, but the Astros they got to play better than that. They're better than that. They should be winning those games, but I digress. So the Astros are 10th this week, and let's see if they can move up after this week or down perhaps. The St. Louis Cardinals are number 9. Cardinals losing 2 out of 3 against the Cubs this week. They did win that 2-game series against the Pittsburgh Pirates earlier in the week, so they went 3-2. They're 26-20. Teams over 500, though, the Cardinals have struggled. They've won only 6 out of 16 games. But they do have the lead in the National League Central. They're, for what it's worth, I think the Cardinals are they're a formidable opponent, and I think if they keep going and can actually keep winning games, I think they'll start to break away. Chicago's going to be a team to reckon with, but I think in the end, I think St. Louis has this division down pat, unless something foreseen happens that I can't, won't put my finger on or hope for. You don't want to see guys getting hurt. Also, Yadi Molina and Adam Wainwright, what a season they're having for guys as old as they are. Sounds terrible to say, but they're having a great year. Kudos for the St. Louis organization for bringing those guys back. They're making an impact, and they're definitely showing every night. Chicago White Sox pulling in number 8 this week at the Power Rankings. So, the Chi Sox, they're 26-19. That 6-9 over 500 teams record is a little concerning for a team in the trying to make a run for that American League Central crown. They won 2 out of 3 against the Twins earlier in the week. They won the first game 16-3, and then they just got swept by the Yankees. Did show some fight on for this afternoon. They lost to the Yankees 5-4 in the 9th. They did go 2-4 this week though. However, listen, you're gonna have instances where you're not gonna win. You're gonna have a team that you have to play that's hot, and you can't beat them. The White Sox hit the Yankees at the wrong time. And, what can you say? I don't think there's many concerns except for maybe Lucas Giolito. He needs to really get it together. That's the only, I think, out of the pitching set that they have, it's the guy that struggled the most and really shouldn't be struggling. He's supposed to be the ace of that group. But the rest of that starting pitching's been stellar. So they've kind of made up for it. I really would like to see Giolito really keep going. And Yermin Mercedes, man, easily, I think he's really leading the American League Rookie of the Year pact because holy mackerel, what a season he's starting to have. And he's not stopping, so let's keep it going. Let's just hope that hopefully that they can piece it together. Hopefully that whole thing with Tony La Russa earlier in the week for the Chi Sox dies down. I think that was just a bad look. And, La Russa, I think, is very capable of managing a team, but let's see if the clubhouse doesn't get lost under him over time with this whole nonsense on the 3-0 pitch. All right, A's, number 7, and they had a pretty good week this week. They played the Houston Astros. They lost 2 out of 3, but they won 2 out of 3 against the Angels, so they split the week at 3-3. Oakland's at 28-20 now. Oakland's under 500 against teams over 500, which is fine, but they lead the American League West. They've been playing really good baseball. I just think they've gotten some bad breaks at times. A couple of their guys are starting to kind of get banged up. Canha's he's out of the line. He was out of the lineup today. Hopefully, it's not a long-term thing. Their relief pitching, they've gotten a couple guys on the IL. Oakland always has some way to piece it together. I think they'll be fine. They're my pick to win the American League West this year because I think they're just a better team than Houston in a general sense. But listen, I can't fault them for losing 2 out of 3 against Houston. They're always going to be a tough opponent no matter what happens. That series between those two teams always gets intense. So, very fun to watch Oakland right now. Even if they're losing baseball games, they're still in the game. So it's not like they're getting blown out. So we'll see if they can continue to trend upward. They're number 7 this week. San Fran pulling in at number 6. It was a good week to start for San Francisco. They swept the Cincinnati Reds in 4 games, and they killed the Cincinnati Reds on Thursday, and then all of a sudden they ran into the red-hot Los Angeles Dodgers, and they've lost 3 in a row. They went 4-3 this week. Listen, San Francisco, eventually, I don't know if it will, but eventually this magical start to the season is eventually going to run out. Their pitching staff's been outstanding. Cueto, DeSclafani, Alex Wood, just guys just to mention that have had outstanding years to start the year. And is it eventually going to dry out? I don't know. But right now they're 2 games out from the National League West. They did have the best record of baseball at one point this week, and now they're in the second wild card spot after getting swept by the Dodgers. Listen, at some point, I would like to see the Giants make a run with who they have left. A lot of guys. Buster Posey's had a great year. Brandon Belt's had a good year. Let's see what they can do. They're there. They're in the top of the league right now, and it's very weird to see that because nobody expected that for the Giants this year. But listen, let's see what they can do. They're making a push for the playoffs right now and early in the season. Let's see if they can keep it up. All right, Boston coming in at number 5, the Red Sox. At 29-19, they lead the American League East right now. They're tied for that lead. They went 4-6 this week. They beat Toronto 2 out of 3. Oh, wow. Excuse me. Let me do the math on that. They did not go 4-6 this week because they did not play 10 games. They went 4-2 this week. They beat Toronto 2 out of 3, and they beat Philly 2 out of 3. They've won 7 out of their last 10 games. Boston's been up top of the American League East. Nobody expected that this year either. This has been a great year for some of the underdog teams that a lot of people slept on. Giants, Red Sox, 2 of the teams you wouldn't expect to be up there, and they're up there. So, and Boston's been playing really good baseball for pretty much this whole entire season to start. I'm very happy to see what they've been able to do. Let's see if they can try and keep it up. They got some tough tests coming up. Tampa Bay, Yankees, those 2 teams are going to be fighting too. So that could become a 3-dog race. But right now, Boston technically, because they're tied with the lead in the American League East, they're also tied for the top wildcard spot as well in the American League. Number 4, the Yankees. And the Yankees are right now a half game back in the American League East. They kind of made a run out of it after the whole panic situation early in the year. Oh, my word. Everybody was writing this team off right from the get-go early in the season. And this team has proven them wrong. Aaron Boone has proven everybody wrong. And the Yankees are at 28-19. They're a half game back of the Red Sox and the Rays for first place in the East. They are over 500 in all 3 categories, home, away, and over 500 teams, which is always a good thing to see. Trying to dominate a division. They won 6 straight. They went 6-1 this week. The first loss was against Texas, and then they had a no-hitter on the second game of the win streak, and then they haven't stopped since. They swept the White Sox. That was big. I think that's a... Yankees are playing really good baseball right now. Gleyber Torres is in fuego right now. Yes, Stan went back on the IL, but you know what? I think this team has enough pieces to get it, to keep it going, and I don't see the Yankees really kind of going away at all this year, as much as maybe some people would like them to. They're just too good. I think they got way too much talent on this team. The pitching is always something that might worry me if I were a Yankee fan in the long run. I don't think this pitching staff that they have now will keep it going, but how about Domingo Germán really starting to piece it together after with it being back for the first time in a while? Very, very good to see that, and hopefully he keeps that positiveness, and hopefully he can make an impact on this team, because he definitely has for this past month. The San Diego Padres, number 3. All right, so listen to me here, because number 2 is going to be the Dodgers. All right. A lot of people could say the Dodgers should be number 3 and the Padres number 2. All right. Yes, San Diego's won 9 straight. The Dodgers won 7 straight. But hear me out. San Diego's played Colorado and Seattle this week. Those are teams that you need to beat. The Dodgers played Arizona, okay, but then they swept the Giants. All right. That was huge. I think the sweeping of the Giants was a big one. I think that really proves, those 2 teams, they could be 3-2, 2-3 interchange. It doesn't matter. I think the Dodgers deserve that second spot for sweeping the Giants over San Diego sweeping Seattle. But listen, both those teams are playing really good baseball right now. San Diego has the lead in the division. LA is 1 game back. They have the first wild card spot in the National League. This is fun. I mean, with San Francisco in that top row with them, it's just fun to watch, and I'm enjoying every second of the National League West baseball right now. So, and to top it all off, it's the Tampa Bay Rays who've won 10 straight. I mean, they're as high as you can get right now, and it all started with that Yankee series, and the Rays just have clicked since. It hasn't stopped since then. They're 29-19. They are tied for the lead in the American League East. Yeah, I know the Padres and the Dodgers have a better record, yada, yada, yada. But when you win 10 in a row, I think that's something impressive, especially against teams like Toronto. I mean, Toronto's not a pushover. I know they beat Baltimore earlier in the week, and they swept the Mets early in that road trip too. So, I mean, listen, the Rays are playing really good baseball right now, and watch out. They're on their run right now. I don't see them stopping at all. So, that's... I mean, I'm very proud to see the Rays really making a run, though. I think that's something that they've needed to do for a while, and they're just too good of a team. They got wait. I mean, listen, all right. There's no way to explain what they do every year, but the fact that they're staying competitive, I mean, that's great to see. I mean, listen, can we just get them a freaking stadium already in Tampa? I mean, come on. I mean, how hard is it to try and figure this one out? You have a fan base there that is enjoying watching these games and enjoying watching this team, and you have a successful team that's looking to really make an impact. There's no reason to move them. I mean, same with Oakland. I mean, they're the last team in Oakland. I mean, I wish these 2 cities could just get it together instead of trying to find a way to try and find a moving partner and going elsewhere. I mean, Oakland, you just need a new stadium. Tampa Bay, you need a new stadium in Tampa, not in St. Pete. All right, come on, let's get it going. Oakland Rays owners, make it happen. Cities too, let's go. I mean, it just does justice for the teams involved. So, but end to rant. That's enough from me. All right. This video's gone long enough, so I think it's time to go. um, Thank you for joining me on this lovely adventure tonight. And obviously, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Next weekend, I'm going to try and do the power rankings a day early. I have vacation plans coming up the week of Memorial Day, so baseball power rankings most likely will be Sunday during the day, maybe during some games going on. So just be prepared for that. Otherwise, I'm going to try and get that done as quick as possible. I'm also looking to probably maybe get a like I was thinking of maybe getting like a jersey idea video um, for baseball later in the week, more along the lines of which teams should change to jerseys, which teams should not. Um, so that's the whole grand scheme of it. But for the meantime, right now, stay classy, everyone, and thank you for watching.